delighted to be here, to see all of you, and because it's fun to watch my lovely assistant here scampering around fielding questions. I'll attempt to answer any question you might have. If I don't know, if I don't have an answer, I'll make one up. And if you don't ask questions, he will.
Seriously, if you don't ask questions, I will cut up the audience and ask stupid ones until you do.
You don't want to hear them.
There's a question right away. You're spared.
Can you tell us something about your new book?
The new book is called Summer Long, and it's been in the works for altogether too long. And I'm very near finishing it. I'm finishing as we professionals say, the penultimate chapter, the one just before the last chapter. And I'll tell you only that it's about a middle-aged couple who have been a couple for a long time without ever marrying or really living together, who give living space in the man's garage to a charming, slightly strange young woman. And yes, she's run away from a gentleman who comes after her, but neither one is what one would expect them to be. It's not like The Last Unicorn. It's not like anything else I've ever done. I try to do that. I try to make the books and the stories as different from each other as possible. It's called Summer Long, and I'm actually quite fond of it. Usually I just detest and fear a book or a story when I finish it. It took me forever to decide I could live with The Last Unicorn. This one I like. There's probably something really wrong.
All right, so this is another question. How about right here?
I actually owned one of the original books that you came out with for The Last Unicorn, one with the dragon and the demon and everything.
That early version, yes.
The early version. Have you ever planned on finishing it?
Well, in an odd way, I haven't finished it, but there's a story that derives from that. I live in Oakland, California, and there's a short story of mine called Oakland Dragon Blues. It has to do with a young cop in my part of town who suddenly has to deal with a dragon that just plopped down out of the skies, taking up most of an intersection. There's a serious traffic jam going on, and being a very earnest cop, he approaches it and says, "Sir, you really do have to move out of here, or you're looking at a major citation." And when the dragon just looks at him, he tries it again in Spanish. That doesn't work. He's studying to be, really wants to be a hostage negotiator. And he's been taking classes in Russian. So he starts saying the same thing to the dragon in Russian, and finally lifts one very weary eyelid and looks at him and just says, "Don't start." And it turns out that the dragon, well, it has very much to do with that first version of The Last Unicorn.
All right, I have to step in. He's leaving stuff up. It's one of my jobs. In 1962, he wrote 85 pages of The Last Unicorn. They bear almost no resemblance whatsoever to what you all know. He abandoned that in 1962, threw away for 3 years, then picked it up, threw out all but a page and a half, and wrote the book you know. Now, what he was referring to is a few years ago, a small press in Illinois called Subterranean Press put out that 85-page fragment in a limited edition. It was called The Last Unicorn, The Lost Version. And it opens not with hunters passing through a wood, but the unicorn learning that she's the last of her kind from a dragon who has come stumbling back into the woods after a really nasty brush up with the 20th century. And that's the dragon he's referring to.
At one point, he mentions to the unicorn that, he's had his tail run over by a truck. He's been cited for being an overlong vehicle on a license plate. And he says to her, "Oh, I ate the policeman, of course, but it didn't make me feel any better." And he is the one who tells her that she's the last unicorn in the world. As he crawls away into the forest, he adds, "Enjoy your solitude while you can. Your one myth was always more trouble than it was worth."
And that version only had 1,500 copies, long sold out, long very expensive. We're actually bringing it back sometime this year or next, in a bigger collection of things from his filing cabinet, and the title is going to be, The First Last Unicorn, Another Beginning. It's going to be fun stuff. Next question, way in the back of that corner.
How old were you when you wrote the original version?
It was the summer of 1962, and I was 23, and sharing a cabin with my painter friend, the one next year that I came to Bakersfield with. He'd go out every day, work on an enormous landscape, and I really started writing The Last Unicorn that summer, only so that I could show him that I was working too. It was the only idea I could come up with. It seemed a little promising. And I dropped it, about 85 pages into it. And a few years ago, we talked about that time, and I told him why I kept on with The Last Unicorn, because I admired his tenacity in going out every day with that huge landscape strapped to the back of his motor scooter and a brown bag lunch. And he said passionately, I hated that damn landscape. I would have quit in a week, but you were back at the cabin writing this book.
Awesome.
Based on the description you just gave about the dragon, would you say that the butterfly is sort of a reincarnation of the original concept for the dragon?
The butterfly is one of the few versions, fragments of that early version. Actually, it goes back to the beginning.
Oh, well.
It took me about 3 days to write that butterfly speech, and it's a mixed bag of old poems, lines from the oldest play I know of ever written in English, singing commercials of the period. There's the punchline, a mildly dirty joke that he and I were cracking each other up with till that summer. It's not in the movie. But the butterfly, I've said often, is as close to a sketch of the inside of my head as I'm ever likely to draw.
Ooh.
I can attest. Absolutely. Butterfly, perfect self-portrait. Another question? We have like time for 2 more questions, then we're out. So who's, all right, I'm going to ask a stupid one. Oh, hand it up right here.
I read online that the rights to Glass Unicorn film expires in 2015. And
February 2015.
Does that sound like we're counting the days? Yes.
which I'm excited for because I would love this to be a live action version. And would you be, how can I phrase it?
I would.
How involved would you be in the next movie?
Totally short, perhaps, of singing the soundtrack songs.
Let's be realistic about this. Let's be honest about this. Shall we?
Why on earth?
Because these poor people will tell, it's the internet age. People will tell people in the internet, stuff will get out there, it won't be accurate.
Yeah. All right, you do it.
All right, I'm the business guy, so I'll be accurate really quickly. The movie's owned by an English company, ITV. When those film rights revert in February 2015, they revert to ITV. And they can technically do anything they want with them. We hope they'll do smart things with them. That's what we're working on making happen. This tour is a partnership deal between us and ITV. 3 years ago, when we were finally settled the fact that he wasn't paid for decades for this movie, we settled it with ITV. We decided to work together and try to do things with the rights. If we're successful before February 2015, those rights will all be merged back into a single company, which will be co-owned by us and ITV. And if that happens, we'll be able to fight as long as we have to make things great, because we'll be in the game and they can't kick us out. But we're not there yet. And coming to this theater is helping us do that. The tour does lots of things, but it also shows these people that you're out here and that they have to pay attention to you and they have to keep you happy. So become a tour member, help us get to that point.
And I love telling people that some years ago, Christopher Lee, who's 91 now, I think, reassured me. And you can't help imitating Christopher if you've been around him for 15 minutes. He assured me that it may well come to pass that by the time your Last Unicorn live-action version is ready to go before the cameras, I may have passed on. Do not let it concern you. I have risen from the dead several times. I know how it's done.
And it's actually amazing who's out there who loves this movie. I mean, Amy Adams is a big Last Unicorn fan. Michelle Williams is a huge Last Unicorn fan. We just discovered Tuesday night that Josh Duhamel and Fergie are big Last Unicorn fans. It's an amazing world out there. So I'm sure something will get done and it'll be really cool. Okay, you.
I'm
crossing my fingers, hopefully it goes.
Thank you.
It's not really a question, but I just wanted to really, really thank you. This movie actually and the book meant so much to me as a child, and it still does. I get teary-eyed when I watch it or read it, and it was a big part of helping me grow my imagination and for the love for reading. I just wanted to thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what artists are supposed to do.
And in response to that, I have a confession and a complaint. My confession is that I'm standing here today because when I was 14 years old, I read The Last Unicorn and Peter's first novel, A Fine and Private Place, in the same month. Could not believe that one human being could write two such radically different but equally amazing books. And all my life later, I know exactly what you're talking about. It shaped my imagination, did all kinds of things to change me, and I'm here because of that. And now for my complaint. You son of a bitch! You say you tear up when you read his stuff? The sneaky thing he does, he makes you cry when you read the stuff, and then when you read it a second time, you cry in a different place because now you know what this thing over here you never noticed means. And you're here, and you start sobbing 30 pages earlier. I'm so pissed at you.
It's either that or get a job.
After that,